Uh, you're joining us. This is Angel with Mastiff Home Buyers here today with Stephanie Davis from Farmers Insurance. Stephanie has some great things to talk to us about today. So we're just going to jump in and get started.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Stephanie Davis. I own a farmers insurance agency. I have been in insurance actually for 10 years now, and April of next year will be 4 years that I've been a business owner. And I work with a lot of investors and then a lot of homeowners as well, first-time home buyers, homeowners that have been buying insurance for longer than I've been alive. So yeah, I have all walks of clients, and what keeps me in this industry is my passion for people. And really, I just want to bring some value about homeowners insurance and what's trending in the industry, because I hear more often than not that people that buy insurance, they're like, oh, I just have to have it, and I really hate dealing with insurance. I love unpacking that and like making it easier for people to understand, because it's something that we all have to buy, but not a lot of people understand what they're actually buying and how to use that contract.
Right. So I'm hoping that you can tell us a little bit about this. So we're here, hopefully we'll have some homeowners who can get and connected into some of this content, because I think that's who our target is. We want to bring value to homeowners and help them find the right insurance, know what kinds of questions to ask, and I think you're going to tell us about some secrets maybe that people don't know about insurance. So that would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So the biggest secret is it's not all, you get what you pay for as far as like the service and the contract and how that company is going to pay out. Not all insurance contracts are created equally. And a lot of homeowners, because we all have a budget, and I respect it, that we need to stay in, which I respect, but it's a lot of people just focus on what they're being billed each month or each year, and they don't really take into consideration how much money is being allotted to them for certain instances where they might need money from the insurance company. So a lot of people have a misunderstanding of what their dwelling coverage is. So your dwelling coverage, no matter what insurance company you work with, your dwelling coverage is always going to be the top number on your homeowner's contract. It's going to say dwelling, and then they're going to give you a number. A lot of people don't understand where the insurance companies come up with that number. They think that number should be their purchase price or the market value of their property. And the dwelling cost is always going to be different than the market value, because they're calculated completely different. So your dwelling for your insurance policy is specifically calculating labor and material costs per square footage on your home. So if you have a contract where your home is like covered for $150,000, well, there should be a page in the contract that says, okay, that $150,000 is X dollars per square foot. And based on where we are in the market right now, you want to be at least $180 to $200 per square foot. To make sure that there's enough money to rebuild your house when you have to use that contract.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's key, is that's the cost that it's going to take you to rebuild. If it blows away in a tornado or burns down in a fire or anything that happens, that's your replacement of that home.
Yep.
So I think that is very important to know, because folks don't really understand how much coverage they need. So tell me, how do you help them understand and talk them through the steps so that they can make an informed decision about how much coverage they need for their home?
So it's a great question. So we really dive into what is the grade of the build of your home. Is it just bare minimum countertops and like an apartment build value, or is it a luxury build? Depending on how much money they spent building that home or rehabbing that home, with the quality of material will really either drive up the dwelling cost or it will bring it down.
Right.
Because, that's obviously you don't want to be having luxury material and then your house burned down and then you only have a budget for builder grade material.
Right.
Like that's going to
Right.
be very disappointing claims experience.
Right. Absolutely. And so can you also, are all policies replacement, or are there other types of policies that people can get?
Yeah, great question. So there's not just replacement costs. So you
Okay.
really need to read your contract or have an advisor that really
Yes.
cares about your well-being and your experience when you have to use it, not just the price you're paying. Because there's replacement cost, there's actual cash value, and then there's also an agreed value that you can buy on your home. So replacement cost is the company giving you the exact metrics of what it would cost them in today's market on the material and labor to rebuild your home and remove all of that
Right.
burn up material or destroyed material.
Yep.
And replacement cost is going to give you the best insurance experience when you have to rebuild it.
Yeah.
And then actual cash value, I always tell people it's like garage sale prices, right? Like they're paying you out on a depreciated scale. So if that luxury material is 30 years old, then they're going to give you a depreciated value payout on that luxury stuff. So
Right.
you're not going to be able to go to Home Depot and buy it for the same price.
Right.
And then you're responsible for the difference in that margin.
Yeah.
And a lot of people aren't prepared for that. They don't have that kind of money just laying around, so they're really depending on their insurance to pay for that whole bill.
Right.
So actual cash value can be a pretty headachesome experience if you don't know what you're buying. If you know
Right.
what you're buying and you're prepared for that, great, buy it. It's going to be cheaper, so to speak,
Yeah.
up front.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I am one that unfortunately I've had to use my insurance on claims in the past, and having the replacement costs was absolutely. I probably didn't know what I was buying.
Yeah.
But I did have the right insurance and I did have the right policy, and now I always know. And when we're looking at pricing, I'm like, oh, maybe I want to cover a little bit more, so I may try to go up a little bit and cover more just in case. So I'm all about being insured and having the right amount of coverage.
Yeah. Insurance is definitely a gamble, and for people like you that want that higher dollar safety net, there is a portion in the contract where you can put extended replacement cost. So It's
Right.
like, okay, well, the insurance company is projecting this dollar amount, but heaven forbid we go through this market change and it's
Right.
more, then I have this extra little
Right.
10, 15, or 30% cushion to float me to make sure it's all covered.
Right.
So,
Right. So people will ask, or whenever you're buying a house, people ask for your declarations page. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what it
Yeah.
means to people, and why they should be knowledgeable about what's in their declarations page?
Yeah, so your declaration page is basically the meat and the potatoes of how much money the company is going to give you for each incident. So there's going to be a dwelling number amount. There's going to be a separate structures dollar amount, and then personal property dollar amount, and then personal liability. This is a huge one. Okay, personal liability is I always say it's one of the most important pieces of the homeowners policy, for the simple fact that it covers you in the event of someone suing you. Okay, you don't have to hire your own lawyers. You don't have to pay for the investigation. Like, all of that money is built into your homeowners policy. But if you're skimping and you're buying $100,000 there, that's not going to get you very far in a lawsuit, right?
Right.
And it's literally pennies on the dollar to increase that to $500,000 or $1 million in coverage. And if you're a huge dog person, right?
Yes.
So if your dog is liable for something, whether it attacks someone else's dog or it attacks someone else, or heck, if I had a client where their dog just knocked over someone that was running by their house, insurance claim. Like, we live in a very sue happy society. Anybody can sue anybody for anything.
Right.
Right. So your personal liability is really important, and all of this is going to be covered on your declaration page, your coverage page, and then medical, personal medical, and then any other extra endorsements that you want to put on the policy, like sewer and drain, service line, if you have a wedding ring or if you have expensive
Right.
jewelry, any kind of floaters like that, it's all going to be lined out on the declaration page. So when you're going from company to company, it's really great to take what you currently have to the next insurance company and either say, hey, I want to match this, or what can I do to improve this? Because your insurance policy should change annually, just like your life, right? Like, you don't have the same amount of stuff in your house now as what you did when you bought it, right? You probably have more.
Yeah.
Most people get more stuff, so your dollar amount within that contract should be increasing as your lifestyle increases.
Right. Right. So say I did have a fire or a catastrophe in my house, and my personal stuff was damaged. How is that handled in a claim?
So as far as like your personal property,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So your personal property has a separate dollar amount than the structure of your home.
Mm-hmm.
So I always tell my families we do annual policy reviews. So I always tell people, take a quick video of each room each year, because you're probably changing decorations, you're probably adding to, taking from.
Uh-huh.
Just keep a small file in your smartphone and in your iCloud and your
Right.
Google Drive, where you can easily refresh your memory, because in the event of a claim, if you've experienced this,
Yes.
you only remember the big ticket items in the room. So people oftentimes sell themselves short on how much money they can get from that insurance policy, because they're like, oh, the table and the chair. But then you spent, hundreds of dollars on all of these little decors that you're just out
Yeah.
if you don't remember. And most people in today's society are not going to take inventory of everything. That takes too much time, too much
Right.
work. We don't want to do that.
Right.
So just take a quick video so you can refresh your memory when those traumatic events happen in your home, whether it's a sudden burst of water or a fire. Then that way you can just send that video to the adjuster and say,
Yeah.
hey, I spent approximately this much money on everything that was in this room. And then they should start sending you checks.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about optional coverages? So when you buy insurance, there's obviously some things that have to be paid for, that you have this minimal, but then you have add-ons and optional things that you can pay for. What are some of those things, and what are some of the benefits to having them?
Yeah, so probably the highest influx that I've seen in endorsements over the last few years being a business owner with farmers is the service line coverage. Depending on which city that you live in, Jackson County specifically, I know, the city will send out insurance on the service line, which is the pipes that run on your property underneath your house and your driveway.
Okay.
If you didn't get a sewer scope whenever you bought it, or you've owned the house for 20 years and you haven't had a sewer scope done, the probability of needing that endorsement is probably very high.
Yeah.
And if you deal with the city, nothing moves quickly there, right? So it's a slower process when you buy it from the city, and you don't have a representative that knows insurance to move that along on your behalf. So it's always better to buy that endorsement on your insurance policy, because one, it's going to be cheaper, and two, you're buying it from a company that does insurance. That's what they do. And usually, I can't speak for every insurance company, but for farmers specifically, we have a separate deductible for that coverage, that endorsement specifically. So you have your deductible for your dwelling, and then you have a different deductible for your endorsements.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So I have an umbrella policy.
Yes.
And people will say, well, what is an umbrella policy? And I bought an umbrella policy really not totally understanding what it was or what it covered.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was attached to my house.
Okay.
And so when I sold that house, because it was my home at first, and then we moved and we used that as a rental, and I had this umbrella policy, and I called and I said, well, I need to cancel my insurance and on this house because I've sold the property, and I wanted to cancel the umbrella. And I was asked, well, why do you want to cancel the umbrella? And I was like, well, because I don't own the house anymore. And so it had to be explained to me because I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's like I'm buying and selling houses and I don't know this. So how does the average homeowner know this? And I got the umbrella policy because it was recommended to me when I owned a rental. So is an umbrella policy something that all homeowners should have presented to them and maybe consider as part of their package or add-ons?
Yes. Not all insurance companies offer umbrellas, but they're super, super important because think of it. Okay, so your homeowner's insurance, back to the liability, right? Your homeowner's liability has an underlying liability dollar amount that they will pay out in the event of a lawsuit. Your auto also has an underlying liability, okay, that the company promises to pay out. So it's like, okay, so I have this much money on my car and I have this much money on my home. Well, the umbrella extends over both of these, and if either one of these dollar amounts are exceeded, then the umbrella kicks in and it pays out for that lawsuit, so your bank account is not dipped into. Because if you max out your auto liability and there's no umbrella, well, now I'm coming to your bank account and your assets, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why, the more money that you have, the more assets that you have, it's super smart to have an umbrella because depending on what happens at any of those properties, back to anybody can sue you for anything, you want to have the insurance company's money before they dip into your pockets. Or make you have to start selling properties, or even in the state of Missouri, they can garnish 25% of your paycheck. So it's like you go to work every day, Uncle Sam gets his portion, then the state takes 25%, and then you get what's left over, which that's lifestyle changing.
For sure.
So,
it's so important. It is so important.
Yep.
So I know you always talk about other benefits of insurance and how to protect. People can use insurance to protect themselves and their families, whole life policies, and I don't know all the lingo, but just different kinds of policies that people can purchase that I assume are optional. They're not part of a standard package, but can you tell us about those kinds of policies and how we can use them to protect our family in the event something bad happens to us?
Yeah, for sure. So for the average homeowner, most people are going into a mortgage contract with two people, right? Mm-hmm. So when we go and apply for a mortgage, we're taking your income into consideration and we're taking my income into consideration. Well, if I die, your income probably isn't going to be enough to maintain that mortgage, right? Mm-hmm. So we have a 30-year mortgage in place together on this house.
Right.
If you buy a term life policy for 30 years for the amount of the loan, well, the term life insurance policy is going to be stupid cheap if you and I are young and healthy, right? Yeah. So we can buy a temporary policy that is for the life of our loan together. So if I die, then you get paid out that life insurance proceed, and then you can pay off the loan on the house, and you get to keep the house rather than frantically trying to figure out how you're going to make X amount of extra dollars a month and prevent this from going into foreclosure and probate and all of these other things that happen when there's two people on the loan.
Right.
And even when there isn't two people on the loan, say I'm a single mom and I buy a house, if I buy a life insurance policy that matches the years of the loan, well, my beneficiary on the life insurance policy will get paid out that life insurance. They can pay off the house, and now my kids can stay in that house. And my mom or one of my cousins can move into that house with them, and they don't have to worry about overhead, right? Yeah. A lot of times families have to downsize, sell their house and downsize into an apartment when family members die because they can't afford it. Well, with life insurance, you don't have to worry about moving or downsizing, and you have a paid off overhead rather than committing to rent forever. Rent is a forever cost, where you can buy a house, back it by life insurance, and then that's paid off and it stays within your family for however many years, and it just continues to build equity and they get more and more money out of it.
Right.
So that's really how you create the legacy, is buying the asset, your home, buying your home and then backing it with life insurance to make sure that that stays with the family.
Cool. So does that life insurance, that's something that you can sell along with all the other policies and things?
Yeah, and actually if you buy it, so if you came to me and you were like, hey, I want to do homeowners insurance with you, I would put the discounts on there for your auto and life insurance, because for each policy that you stack with me, the better price that you're going to get.
Right.
It's like going to McDonald's and ordering a full meal rather than.
I don't want the fries. They're going to make me fat, but I'm going to get them anyways because it's cheaper.
Right. Or like going to McDonald's for the burger, going to Wendy's for the fries, and then Sonic for the drink. Like, you're wasting more gas. It's more money. Like, it's the same thing when you a la carte your insurance policies.
Yeah.
You're not getting all of the maximum discounts that you can actually get. Right.
Absolutely. That makes total sense to me. So I mean, I love the idea, and I love being able to kind of share some of these concepts with people so that they better understand why insurance is not a demon.
Right.
Because it's like, I hate
my
the
daily
insurance
conversation.
It's, I don't want to pay for this. I don't want to pay for insurance. But, I think that many of us know other people, not just us, who have actually had to utilize, insurance. And so being an advocate for insurance, I've become one because, I know people who have actually used it and been protected. I also see people in the work that I do who don't have their asset protected. That they have a major fire in their house and they had no insurance. And
you see it all the time when people pass away, where families are scrounging and creating GoFundMe accounts. Like, it can easily be prevented with $10, $20 a month.
Right.
If you focus less on the small dollar amount today and focus on the bigger dollar amount and opportunity in the future.
That's right. Yep. How much was that coffee?
$2.19.
What can you get me for $2.19?
Well, I mean, if I got this every single day,
right? Yeah, in a month,
right?
Times 30,
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you could buy $150,000 in life insurance for $2.19 a day if you break it down that way.
Yeah, I mean, you really can. I mean, that's why I pointed that out, because I was thinking,
and most people will go to Starbucks rather than Quick Trip. So I know your coffee's more expensive.
That's right. That is true. But I thought about that when I first got the umbrella policy. I was like, well, how much is it? Right. It was offered. Well, how much is it? And it was this tiny amount, and I was like, okay, I don't really understand what it is, but I'm going to get it anyways, because it's, at the time it was like, it was new to me, and I was like, okay, that sounds fine. It's not expensive.
Right.
Why not?
Exactly. So back to that pennies on the dollar kind of thing.
Yes.
When you're exchanging money with the insurance company. What kind of risk are you taking on as far as that monthly dollar amount versus what is the risk that the insurance company is taking on when you have to use that policy?
Right.
You can buy $1 million umbrella policy if you only have your home and maybe a couple vehicles. $1 million umbrella policy is like $200 a year.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cheap, and so is life insurance. Like, the average person thinks the cost of life insurance is 10 times more than what it actually is.
Right.
And so it scares them and they don't look into it.
Right.
Or they go on Google and they don't understand it because there's so much information. And it's better to get the information from a trusted advisor and someone that has life experience in it than going to Google.
Right. Yes. Yeah, so that you can break it down for me, because, going to Google, you can read it and still not understand it.
Yeah.
But some of these things, I don't even think people know exist. So if people haven't been, because I'm trying to think, I was 40 before I was ever offered an umbrella policy. And I'm like, oh, what is that? So either I paid for it and didn't know it because they just put it on my policy when I lived back in Hays, Kansas, or it was never offered to me because I was like, I never had one.
Yeah.
I mean, and I assume these aren't new.
No.
I mean, the idea is not new. Life insurance certainly isn't new.
No.
And so it's one of those things that, you learn, those reels that they're like, I was today years old when I learned, some crazy thing about the dishwasher, or about, how something works. And it's like, I was, 40 years old before I really learned how some insurance worked. And I also learned a lot from being on that flip side of the claims, having to go through that process too, and understanding, how the properties are valued. And I was lucky that I had the right kind of policy.
Yeah.
I had the replacement costs. I had a good chunk for my personal property. Most of it was salvageable. I mean, it needed to be cleaned, and so we could, do that. But I was lucky, and a lot of people aren't lucky. So, I appreciate that, your ability to sit down with people and walk them through, all of the options, and let them make those informed choices. But at least they've been presented with, all of the options and what's available to them. And how it can help them. I mean, when they ask me if I want to add jewelry add-ons, I'm like, no, I don't have any jewelry. I don't really have anything. Never been a jewelry person. No gold, silver, any big things in the house. I don't keep anything.
One thing that people really overlook, and I have in my insurance career, this has been used. Probably the number one floater that has been used, or people wish that they had it, was women putting their wedding rings on the policy. So a man will go out and spend $5,000 plus on a ring, and it's so great to have it on your finger and it's all shiny. But then what happens when you're washing your hands in a public place and you take it off, or you go to the beach and it falls off your finger?
It's in the ocean.
Right. So I have, every time I follow a lot of my families on social media. So anytime anybody's gets engaged, I'm like, hey, send me what the ring costs so I can put it on your homeowner's policy. And most people don't realize that it costs very little to put it on the homeowner's policy, and then you have a $0 deductible. So it's like, if you lose it, if it gets stolen, then you just call me and say, hey, I lost this. Can you cut me a $5,000 check so I can get a new one? Yes. That's so much better conversation than, I lost my wedding ring. Is it covered under my personal property? Can you replace it? And I have to say no, because it's different. Most of the time, your ring isn't going to exceed your deductible. You want to have, that's another thing that we could talk about that we didn't really talk about, is the deductible on your home. Most people want to have like a $500 or $1,000 deductible on their home, which doesn't really make sense for today's market, because anything within a couple $1,000s as a homeowner, you're probably going to take care of that yourself, right? You don't want the insurance company to pay you just a measly couple $1,000s and then it be on your insurance history for the next 5 years, because that jacks your rates up, because you're a higher risk for the insurance company now, right? So I always tell people, the higher your deductible on your homeowner's policy, the lower your cost of insurance. And please do not think that the insurance company is responsible for your roof at all times, okay? That's not realistic. Your roof needs to be maintained regularly, and it needs to be replaced every so often. And that's not always the insurance company's responsibility. That's one thing that I've seen farmers really cracking down on, where if someone tells me that their roof has been replaced in the last 5 to 7 years, they have to sign an extra
Yeah.
piece of contract saying, yes, this was replaced, because the insurance company doesn't want to say, okay, we will give you a discount for a 5-year-old roof, and then you claim another new roof in next year.
Right.
It doesn't make profitability sense because roofs are expensive.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. But back to the deductible, it's the higher your deductible, the lower your cost of insurance. And you want the insurance company to protect your big dollars, not your couple $1,000s.
Right. Right. Well, and I think maybe something people should be asking, and maybe it's a misconception, is that they're going to have to go to the bank and get that $5,000 to give it for the deductible. And that's not how mine worked. It was taken out of my claim payment. So I didn't even, whether it was $1,000 or $5,000, it didn't come out of my pocket. It came out of the check that they were cutting to reimburse me. But still, I think, and that was one thing that I learned about deductibles just going through that process, is that it really didn't matter. Because if it would have been, I think I had a $1,500 deductible or $2,000 deductible or something like that, and it just got taken out of my check,
Yep.
And
and depending on the people that you hire will also determine, like, do you have to pay that deductible to them? Because basically on the insurance side, it's like, okay, the total invoice is X amount of dollars. Your deductible is X amount of dollars.
Right.
So the difference in that is what we're going to cut the check for. And then usually the deductible is paid to the contractor that does the work.
Right.
If there isn't enough money from the insurance company to cover everything that they've done.
Okay, cool. So I don't know, what have we missed in this conversation?
Well, we talked about trends. Insurance has been at an all-time high as far as cost within the last year and a half, and that's because of all of the market changes,
Right.
and the massive influx of payouts once everybody got back on the road.
Oh yeah.
And
people forgot how to drive.
right. And what a lot of people don't know is there used to be, so each state has their own insurance laws.
Right.
And Missouri used to have a rate cap, and that was actually thrown out within the last year and a half. So insurance companies don't have a 10% rate cap anymore, like they do in California. Like California and the coast, the government regulates how much the insurance companies can increase those costs.
Okay.
But now here in the Midwest, they don't have that rate cap anymore.
Right.
So depending on the company that you're working with and their profitability book individually will determine what kind of increase you're seeing at that renewal contract.
Okay.
So it is definitely in your best interest to shop your insurance every couple of years, if not every year, just to make sure that the customer service is valuable and the rate that you're getting within that contract is what's trending and what's available in the market.
Right. And so you can service in Missouri and other states.
Yeah, I can do the whole state of Missouri and the whole state of Kansas.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we got Kansas and Missouri both covered. So if people have properties in both states, that's awesome. So you talked in the beginning about kind of who you serve. Who is your primary customer? Is it new homeowners or investors, or what type of population do you primarily serve?
So I would say the mass majority of my clientele are investors, but I do have a lot of homeowners as well that only have the one house.
Yeah.
And so it's fun for me both ways, because investors like to talk fast. They're in it for the relationship, and it's minimal coverage and minimal details. But a homeowner, I get to kind of go through different stories and scenarios, and I enjoy like going through the coverages and putting them in different stories that they can relate to and be like, oh, I'm not worried about that at all, or oh, I'm really scared of that.
Right.
So we can tailor the policy to what kind of risk that you're comfortable taking on, back to that peace of mind, right?
Yeah.
So I love somebody that values that explanation, that education.
Yeah.
If you're just looking for fast, cheap, and not a lot of conversation, then you should probably go to like Progressive or Geico. But if you value,
Yeah.
like, I'm an advisor, right? So
Right.
like an Edward Jones or a real estate agent, like those people bring value to the transaction
Right.
that you're not going to get just buying online.
Right. Absolutely. And when my son moved out of the house, he went to get his own insurance on his car, and he came back with the name of some insurance company that I'd like never heard of in my whole life, and I'm like, really? Who is that? Do you even know if they're like a real company? I mean, and I think that they were, but I mean, there are so many like little new companies out there that aren't big name, And so I think that scared me a little, because I was just like, oh my gosh, are they going to have the same types of coverage as, some of the bigger, more well-known companies? And I know what I've found with little companies is they don't always have all of the products.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're looking for lots of products, most people, I think, just, they don't even know what they're looking for. They're just like, cover my house, cover my car, and they don't know what questions to ask. But I appreciate you kind of pulling that out of them and talking them through, because I do think it's important so that homeowners don't get in situations where they're in distress because they didn't have the right coverage, or they weren't advised correctly, or at all in their decisions about insurance coverage. And I hope if people get nothing else out of this conversation today, that they get that insurance is important, and it's not just a necessary evil. And that, and maybe it is. I mean, I have worked for insurance. I've worked for health insurance, and, it's one of those things that it's like, man, but I think that people just need to know that it is there to protect them, and will be grateful for it if they ever have to use it.
Most people, if they haven't had to use their insurance, they hate insurance because of the price. And then if they, on the flip side of that coin, if they have had to use insurance, they either hate it because it was a really terrible experience and they felt very isolated and alone through it, or they have a newfound respect and understanding and appreciation for insurance because it was a really good experience when they had to use it, right? And you can go 30 years, 40 years without using a homeowner's policy or an auto insurance policy. And I always tell people, maybe you're a great driver and you're one of those lucky few percentage of people where you never have a home loss, but everyone's going to die, right? So life insurance is the best investment that you can make for your family because it's the only policy that is guaranteed to pay out.
Right.
Like, none of these other policies are guaranteed to give you money.
That's right. For sure. No, that's great.
And it's the cheapest one. Like, without a doubt, like, it's going to be cheaper than your homeowner's insurance. It's going to be cheaper than your car insurance. So it just makes sense to back that and have that.
Yeah. And so are all of these products that you have, are they offered by other companies, or is there something that's unique for your situation, or?
So each company is a little bit different. I've only ever worked for farmers, so I know I can service a household's entire needs, from their home, auto, life insurance, their boat insurance, their travel trailer, even if they just have a trailer, a jet ski, a boat. Like, I can service all of that. Some companies will only write a certain product, and then they'll like partner with other insurance companies that will outsource those other things. So just ask those questions whenever you're shopping around of what all can I get covered through you. And then if it's, so I know like Progressive specifically is an auto insurance company, but they will give you an auto home discount, but your home is going to be written through Travelers or Hartford. So it's different companies that you have to call depending on the claim.
Right.
And
Right.
if you're just dealing with the 1-800 number, that can kind of get sticky. So that peace of mind is really another layer of what I offer, because you don't have to wait on hold to get advice.
Right.
My clients love to call me and say, "Hey, this just happened. What do I do?" And I'm like, "Okay, this is my let me put my coach hat on." Like, I love to coach people through it because I have so much experience, and it's exciting because I'm a mama bird, right? Like, I love to nurture people.
Yeah.
So let me just put my arm around you and walk you through this very traumatic experience, and I'm gonna listen to your feelings, and then we're gonna, figure out what the next steps are to solve this really big problem that you didn't think that you were gonna have.
Right. And you know what? I really think that people need that, and they don't know it.
Yeah.
Because claims people are not like that.
No.
I don't care where they are.
No,
I don't care where they are. They're like these rigid, they're nice and everything. I never found anybody that was not kind, but they're just like these rigid, I'm sorry about your home, and next, check the box.
Right. You only got this much money. Go on.
And it was like, I sometimes had to go back to, my office and be like, I'm struggling with this because I don't know what to do. And so, if you as an agent who represents these individuals and selling can help them with some of that process too on the back end, even though you don't own that process, and I know you don't control that process at all.
Yeah, but I'm like the lawyer, right? So if you hire a lawyer to go in front of the judge is going to be nicer to the lawyer than you as the the person that's being prosecuted, right? So I have those relationships and I have those connections within the back end of the company that a lot of the consumers don't have access to.
Right.
So it's like, if you don't have an agent, you don't have that lawyer representation, then you're kind of beating your head against the wall trying to figure it out when it doesn't have to be that hard.
You also understand the lingo that homeowners or even investors may not totally understand. And so being able to speak, that language, with the claims people, and then come back and interpret some of it, I think is invaluable.
Yep.
So I don't know, is there anything else that you want to cover today before we wrap up?
Let's see. I'm located here in North Kansas City. I just moved actually. So we're here at iWorks now, and I'm just a phone call away. Or I really love meeting people. Like, I'm in this for the relationship, right? So I want to sit down with you. I want to hear what the experience you have had with the person that you've been buying from, and how can we make that better. So I'm just really in it for the relationships, and making this really daunting, unknown thing easy for people, because it doesn't have to be super hard.
Right. So how do people get in touch with you?
So I have a website. I have a Google page, Stephanie M. Davis at Farmers Insurance. You can Facebook me, you can Instagram me, you can Google me. Like I said, I have a website. You can go on and ask requests. You can call or text my office. That's another great thing about working with a local agent is you can text me your questions. You can't text a 1-800 number. Right. So all of that information is online. So
that's awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This has been fun.
I think it's going to be exciting. We're going to have a lot of great content. So hopefully people will be able to grab on to some of the chunks of things that you said. And maybe if they have questions, call you.
Yeah, for sure.
So
even if you don't buy insurance from me and you just want to have questions about something that you experienced or something that you're not sure of, obviously each contract is going to be a little bit different, so I'm not going to advise you on anything too heavily that I don't have the contract in front of me, but I have enough experience, and I have coached my clients on how to use other policies, and I've had to use policies myself. I recently coached my boyfriend on how to use one of his policies on one of his flips because we had a hot water heater explode in one of our houses. Even if you're not my insured, I can still listen and coach you on some things.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up, and I hope this has been useful for folks. And call Stephanie. I greatly thank you for being here today.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
appreciate your time and giving to the homeowners.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, and good luck with all of your insurance stuff.
Thanks.